Welcome back, everyone, to the Moms Like Me podcast powered by Support Now. We are making history this evening for two reasons. One, I'm recording at night, and if y'all know me, I never record at night. We are making a rare exception in this case for an incredible two guests, and that's the first. So the first part is recording at night. The second part, though, is we have a husband-wife couple on the podcast this evening, and I'm really so excited about the opportunity to have two people on that have been through a health journey for their child. And as we all know, behind every strong woman is sometimes, and in this case, absolutely the case, a strong man, a strong husband holding us up. And so many times in my line of questioning to moms, I say, what was your spouse like in this moment and how did they get through this? And so today we're going to have the opportunity to get to all of that. So first of all, I want to welcome to the podcast, Lyndsi and Wesley. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So I have gotten to know Lyndsi through her work at Levine's. I was blown away by her story briefly after we had a meeting, and she shared with me that she's new to a hospital setting, but not new to the medical field whatsoever. And these two know what it's like to be on quite the roller coaster, an unexpected roller coaster. So Lyndsi and Wesley, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your story and what kind of got you into this world of diagnosis, congenital heart defects. Obviously, this is a very intimate topic for the both of you.
Yeah, so at just 9 days old, our life and world was turned upside down when we thought we had a healthy little baby boy. First child, first grandchild, a lot of firsts. And so on that day, on day 9, I knew something was off. Something just wasn't right. I felt off, but Luke was off. So we had touch base with the pediatrician that day, and, he was like, well, just watch him, see if he'll eat and so what, but he would not eat. We took his temperature rectally, and it was 92.
Oh, wow.
So, what do you do when your baby's cold? You really don't ever hear that. You're always like, what if your baby's hot? So we took off to our local emergency room, and that's where it was discovered that Luke either had sepsis or a heart defect.
Wow.
Well, it was a heart defect. So from there, we were actually transported to Levine Children's. This was 2008. I believe Levine was like a year old at that point. We didn't know babies got sick, to be honest. We were first-time parents. I guess when you get pregnant, you don't think about these things unless you do know in utero that your child is going to have, a condition or something's wrong. So, yeah, it was a shock. So that's where our journey began.
So, Lyndsi, you said that this came to a total surprise. So nothing was picked up on an ultrasound out of the 20-week, nothing.
We actually had our 7 day checkup the day before.
Yeah.
And so everything was great. He had gained weight, all the things that you tell you to do, let him eat and let him sleep. We were there. So,
and I think what you mentioned, Lyndsi, earlier, that's also so important in this is this was your first child. Yes. And I think any parent that comes home from the hospital, you get this thing and you're saying, where's the manual for it? And how do I know?
Yeah.
And I feel like the default is, well, you kind of just know. You just figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so it's interesting how, while that can be so defeating to hear, because as most parents, you want to know, well, what, I need more. I need to learn. I need to study how to do this right. Your instincts really did kick in. You knew that something was wrong, despite because you're still probably very hormonal. You're still coming off the high of all of it, but you had that gut feeling.
I went back. I'm like, was it the hot ham and cheese I ate from Hardee's that day? Because I was breast. It's like, what? I was trying to go through the steps of, that day. But, we knew something was not right. And like I said, it led us to Levine, where we get there and we're put in the NICU immediately, even though Luke wasn't, born early. He was full term, but I think there was no space, and weren't exactly sure what course they were going to take it. And we met with a surgeon, and he drew out a picture, which, was fantastic because, a baby 9 days old, their heart, it's tiny. It's little. Yeah. So he drew us the picture, and he was like, we're going to do this. We're going to do it this way. And, hope for the best. And so at 12 days old, Luke had his first surgery, and it was 17 hours. So
Wow.
we hopped. We started out in one waiting room, hopped to another one because that one closed. I think we went to 3 or 4 that night during the whole, process. And I guess our surgeon came out and he was like, everything went great. He's like, I finished, but I went back in because something just wasn't right. He didn't like what he saw, so he actually went back in and corrected, all the issues and came out. And so, like I said, 17 hours later, we were able to see Luke for the first time. And, they warned us going in, like, when he comes out, he's going to have wires and tubes and there's going to be IV poles and, just want to prepare you for what you will see. And I really don't even think it bothered me one bit. I think that we were on such a high, a rush because, the last few days have just been, what's happening? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
Time's like almost moving so fast that you
Yes.
don't have a moment to
No,
pause
we
and
did
to
not
really
have a moment to
process.
pause. I think the only moment that we did pause, and I still like tell this story to this day, Wesley and I had our moment. We broke down, we cried, we got it out, and we were like, why us? Why us? And then we're like, why not us? Let's go. Let's we fist pounded, we high-fived, and we're like, we got this. So
yeah, that was going to be my next question is how did you, it sounds like you were you kind of like took everything in stride. That's how you, Lyndsi, how you process it. Wesley, was it the same way for you? What was kind of your approach during all of this?
Yeah, so I'm a big Yankees fan, and during this time, Joe Torre was dealing with cancer himself, who was the manager of the Yankees. And I'll never forget, so we're going through this, and I was reading his book, and when he got diagnosed with cancer, he asked the same questions: why me? Why me? And he had the mentality, well, why not me? He said, I'm a former baseball player, I'm a manager of the Yankees, I have lots of money. It's better to happen to me where I have the resources to be able to fight it than some single mom or some single dad or some kid. And so when Lyndsi and I were going through this, I guess that's kind of the mentality I had. Like, we had a great support system. Our family was all close. We had a wonderful community that ultimately we'll tell you about that was back with us, and we were in a position where maybe God gave us Luke to be able to help him.
Yeah.
And so I think that mentality, both of us kind of flipped and said, all right, let's do what we have to do to make sure Luke is taken care of every way possible he could.
Yeah. So he had the initial surgery at Levine's in Charlotte, but that was not the end of the journey. When did you how did he respond to that surgery, and when did you know that there was more needed or more potential, like, room for improvement or at least to improve his quality of life?
It took a while for Luke to be extubated. They're often referred as the wimpy little boys, cardiac babies. The boys are wimpy, so they take their own little time with things. So that was, it was a good month probably that he was intubated.
Oh, wow.
And then after that finally took place, we had to deal with feeding, because when you're a baby, infant, that suck, swallow, breathe concept, if you don't do it, you forget it and you lose it. So it was like relearning things. So he wasn't gaining enough weight by a bottle, so we ended up with a feeding tube. So we had the G-tube. So that's how he got all his nutrition, which I don't think we even question. There was no debate. We're like, do it. If that's what's needed, we're going to do it.
Right.
So that, and then we had blood testing done because of his initial heart condition. DiGeorge syndrome is what it's called. And it's a huge spectrum, kind of like autism. So it came back that he did have that. So that was one of those things where they're like, do not get on Google. We had to have many talks with the grandparents to not do that. Not get on Google and not look at the monitors, look at the child. Those were like the big discussions in our rooms. So yeah, he had the G-tube, and then we're actually set to go home soon. And we used that 4-letter word, which in my job today, I always tell families, do not say that word out loud, which is home, because these little ones, they hear that and then they misbehave.
Oh.
So yes, do not ever say that in a hospital setting. When there's talk of it, just, code word, or just don't say it at all. Step outside and then say it.
Yeah, because the G-tube was placed, I think, on Friday, and then if everything went well, on Saturday they were going to release us, and then Saturday morning he had a cardiac arrest.
Wow.
And thankfully, when he did, our surgeon was actually in the room. along with our cardiologist. So they were able to control it. And so that ultimately led more testing and found out he had a blockage in his left main coronary, which in kids that are a month and a half old does not happen.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
So at that point, you have another decision to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what led you to Boston specifically? Was it the understanding that you needed more, or was there a specialist in Boston?
So a little bit of both. I'll speak to that because so we scheduled a surgery with our surgeon, and the night before the surgery, our surgeon was no longer at Levine's, and so ultimately. The other surgeon didn't feel comfortable doing the surgery, again, because a left main coronary blockage doesn't happen in a kid that size. And so our other surgeon and a couple of the nurses there and nurse practitioners knew Dr. Basha in Boston. And so they gave us the recommendation. And so we transferred our care there to Boston's Children's Hospital. And I remember we walked out of the hospital, got on the ambulance with Luke, got in the back of the ambulance with Luke, got out at the airport, got on the airplane with Luke. We flew to Boston, and I'll never forget the first time, if you've ever flown into Boston, it's basically flying on an island. It's a peninsula.
Water.
And all you can see is water, then all of a sudden there's landing. And, we were on a medic flight. Got in the ambulance there at the airport, and then drove straight to Boston Children's Hospital, where he was admitted, and then we went and gathered a plan.
Yeah. They're like, you can take one small suitcase.
He didn't have a coat.
It is, February in Boston.
Yeah.
Neither one of us had been to Boston to prepare for February weather in Boston. So let's just say we found the REI and bought gear for this.
Wow.
Trip.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you were there in Boston for how long?
The first time we were there from January until April. April 1st. Yes. We had another surgery there and then got discharged. Yeah.
Yeah, because we played an April Fool's joke. It might have been her idea.
We used the Karen Bridge platform back in the day when it was I don't even know if that's still
basically
by anybody anymore.
Yeah, to update people.
So we posted on the blog, is what you call it, Cambridge.
Yeah.
That it was a long paragraph how with the sport, with what we had in Boston or Luke's needs, that we were going to be moving there permanently. And then I skipped down about 8 or 10 spaces and wrote April Fools. And my mother called me just bawling, crying, freaking out. I think you got phone calls.
Yeah.
And so that was the way we announced that we were coming home.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But it was a picture of us at home on a couch.
Yeah, we were actually home when we announced it.
Because we didn't come home from Levine. Like, we went straight from there, to Boston. So we had not been home since
December.
That's, by the way, I love, Wesley, I love that you shared that story, because I also think when people hear stories like this and paint the picture as scary, and it was scary and traumatic and frightful, you also cling to what seems to be natural to both of you, which is this glass half full. Let's like, we have to live. We have to exude the energy and the spirit that we want him to feel, even though he's so young. That type of energy and spirit, I feel, can often, your kids can pick up on that. They can pick up when you're stressed. And you cannot convince me otherwise. Even if they're so small and so little and not verbally communicating, your presence still means everything. And I think it's such a beautiful illustration that even in the darkest and the most ambiguous of moments, you can find those moments just to break out in laughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was probably, I mean, I don't want to project too much. It's probably, or let me ask the question, did it help you just kind of push forward in the moment? Because it sounds like you're almost living like hour to hour. You're waiting, waiting.
And that's what I often say. It's like you live minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, week to week. Like, you can't really look forward. You just kind of have to be in the present, the moment, the now, because you can have 2 good days, but then you can have 5 bad days, and you feel like you're back at square one and like you're starting over again. And so that's kind of,
I mean, you're talking about earlier being new parents. I mean, when we finally got out of the hospital in Boston, Lyndsi and I both looked at us because, they go progressive floors. And the last thing they did was took his IV out. And then a nurse walks in and was like, well, y'all can go. And her and I were like,
we had not been home.
What does this mean? You know, like we got a book bag with a feeding tube on it, and we're out the door, and both of us felt like we were stealing something, walking out the door of the children's hospital. And we get on the airplane. The first time, you know, either one of us flew with Luke in a passenger plane. We're having to feed him on the plane with a pump we didn't know how to use. And so, yeah, you talk about that. Like that's at some point you just got to be like, all right, this is us. We're going to be positive. We're going to figure it out. And it was all new to us again. Like we were first-time parents all over again with a new situation.
How did you balance? Like, were you working? Like, it sounds like your whole life was just completely, like, it's in a moment, just ripped completely from what you knew. So what was the balance of working, not working? Did you have leave?
I was a teacher, so I'd planned to go back in March originally. And our community, like other teachers stepped up, donated days to me that would cover me through that rest of the year so I wouldn't have to worry about it. And then, you know, not knowing then what was going to come, I planned to stay at home anyway with Luke. Just knowing that I would be the main one at home to run to the therapies, to the doctor appointments. And, you know, we wanted to make sure he got everything he could if it meant me not going back to work. So,
yeah.
And I was an attorney at the time. So it was with a firm that I was able to do some stuff remotely, drafted documents while we were going. And then, you know, Lyndsi's not saying the full truth here. Not only was she a stay-at-home mom, her major was early childhood development. And so she was already trained to work with kids with disabilities and delays. Like, so it was more than just a stay-at-home mom. It was the best thing for Luke for treatment and for him to catch up with the things he needed. And you know, we'll get into it a little bit later, but our community, you know, raised money for us to be able to live in Boston.
Like, and that's exactly where I was going.
Our Christmas lights at our house, because we were obviously decorated for Christmas, they remained on the whole time where we were going. And we had friends that we both knew that went and turned our lights on and off each day and made sure our Christmas lights stayed on, our Christmas tree was on, and all those things. So, you know, we were able to do it with our work, but only because of our family and our community, you know, doing things for us.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I mean, as Lyndsi knows, you know, the biggest motivation that I have and we have at Support Now is to really encourage and to motivate communities to step up in all the ways that matter. And what it sounds like is you had that community that just knew. Mm-hmm. They knew the big things that you needed, like money that would allow you to stay comfortably and in a place that you were not familiar with, but also the little things that almost gave you all some additional, like, dignity in a sense. Like, even though this crazy thing was happening, that you still were capable of being a part of Christmas and being a part of the things that people would have expected you to be a part of, as opposed to feeling like these ghosts that have suddenly vanished. And I am always blown away by the friends or family members that just know. They just know what to do. They don't ask too many questions. Yeah. They just think about, what would I want someone to do for me if I was in that moment? And so how blessed you must feel to have had those people on this journey, both when you were in Charlotte and when you were away.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, you say that, and now in my role, I'm going to go into that a little bit. Those are my thoughts when I walk in these rooms, like, as a mom who was on that couch, on that side with their child in this hospital, what would I want to hear? What would I want to be asked? Like, how do I want someone to make me feel? You know, it goes through my head daily now.
So while you're in Boston, your quote, your physical community is in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. How did you, like, what was your relationship like? How did you support each other? Because it sounds like you spent a lot of time with each other. And
we did, but we had a good, like, we had our days. So typically, you know, we'd have our coffee at 8 a.m. There were rounds at 9. We would almost every week we had a grandparent was up, an aunt was up, somebody in our family was up that would give us a break to kind of step out, because we didn't want to leave Luke. We were fortunate enough that we were there with him the whole time. We were with him the whole time in Charlotte, and we only lived 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
So, you know, without them, we couldn't have probably continued to like each other, I think, throughout this. I think that helped because we did get those breathers and we did get to go have like lunch together or walk around Boston, explore the city some, try to find, I always say like some of the hardest times brought about the best memories because they truly, truly did. I mean, we bonded with the nurses there. They were like, you need to go eat here or you need to go here. And so they became our family as well when we were there. So
do you feel like this experience brought you closer?
For sure. Yeah. Some days I don't know if she likes me, but every day I'm happy to be with her.
I don't have to.
She tells me she loves me, and I don't know if she likes me that day some days. But no, I think whether it's marriage, whether it's a friendship, whether it's coworkers, when you spend that much time together, it's either going to make you or break you. And I will always say there's not a stronger woman, and I've told people this when I spoke about Luke, than the woman sitting beside of me. And it made me realize, that being with her each and every day and almost every hour, every day, and especially what came after we got home, right? Our journey didn't end there. We had another surgery. So we spent more time together in a hospital doing the things that we ultimately learned how to do.
Yeah, we actually went back to Boston for just a routine checkup, and it was in August. And we were sitting there, after he had had the cath and all that, and his heart went into bigeminy rhythm. So he was basically having a heart attack. Had we not been in the hospital with him hooked up to monitors, we wouldn't have known. He was sitting on Wesley's lap playing with his leads, and then they come in and we're like, something's going on here. So from that moment, we were headed back to the CVICU. And then it was decided that transplant would be the best option for Luke to have any kind of quality of life.
And how old was he at that time?
He was, yes. Yeah.
9 months.
Wow.
And we had just found out we were pregnant with our second son. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys spent a lot of time together. So, yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
So, yes. So we waited. We were listed in September for a heart. And then Halloween is when Luke got his heart. So it's known to us as Heartoween.
Wow.
So we lived in Boston for 6 months.
From September to January.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so.
And then you were able to come home after that?
Yes, we were. Yeah, we got
He
to
was
come
thriving.
home in November. Oh, yeah.
We moved to our apartment at full with him in November, but we came home in January.
Yeah, we were discharged from the hospital in November and got to spend Christmas finally out of a hospital in Boston.
He spent his first Christmas out of a hospital in Boston.
Because
It was a little over a year when he was at home. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, again, please share more about how he progressed and then how things turned again.
Yeah, we like I said, we got home in January and then Drew was born in March. So it was a lot at first, but as soon as he got that new heart, he started eating by mouth. We barely used the G-tube for food. It was mostly for his medications. We were back and forth to Boston the first year. And then after that, we started going to Duke for care. Our cardiologist at Boston had a good cardiologist friend at Duke, and we felt comfortable. We're like, if you know someone there, that's where we're going. We preferred Boston, but realistically, we couldn't continue to go back and forth. And we still stayed in contact with Boston for sure. But he was playing catch up. We had the PT, the OT, the speech, horse riding therapy, aquatic therapy. I always say Drew was like
Drew therapy,
because Drew was like,
He's the big little brother.
Yeah, he would check off milestones, then Luke would do it like a week later. They walked like a week apart. So it was like raising twins.
Wow.
Yeah.
We tell a funny story. Drew was starting to speak, and Drew was a little advanced, and he was in there with Luke one day saying, "Say cat, say dog," and then he said, "Say train table." So he pushed him, and Luke, Luke did great. He thrived.
He did. And, he didn't have many words, but he would take you to where he wanted you to go, or he would, yell at you as like, and then you would soon figure it out exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah, he made his opinions known.
He was the type of kid who, from the very beginning, we didn't treat him any differently. We were like, we're going to treat him just like any normal kid. He just had a special heart, and that's how he lived. Like, he had no idea that anything had ever, he lived in a hospital his first year of life. No clue. We traveled, we went to Disney. He had sleepovers with the grandparents. But he lived his best life, and he was so happy. I know somebody the other day, I was like, Luke was never mad. Like, I don't know if he knew that emotion. Like, he really honestly wasn't. He
liked to throw stuff.
He did like to throw, so you better watch out because trains or juice boxes would come flying at your head, or balls.
Because his first therapy was like grabbing things and throwing things. Yeah.
So Drew was born. You see this progress in Luke. I mean, again, it had to be so rewarding to live out this dream, even if it was different than you had anticipated. Seeing your healthy son push along Luke, and again, in a way that wasn't necessarily anticipated, but certainly welcomed.
Yeah.
How did you know he was sick again? What turned?
So I just had Addie. She was 2 weeks old. And we had just gone to Duke in December and had a checkup. Everything was good. Mind you, we had only gone to Duke for outpatient clinic visits. We had never been on their cardiac unit. We had never been inpatient except for like bronchitis or like something respiratory throughout those 6 years. We were like, he's off. Something told me something's not right with Luke. And so we were talking to his cardiologist at Duke, and he was like, why don't y'all go on to the emergency room, bring him in, let's see what's going on. And so it was on a Sunday. We get there, and his heart function was
40%.
Like 40%.
It was in rejection.
Which, after you have a transplant, the first year that's more common to take place or happen, not almost 6 years out. So they, got moved quickly. They got us up to the floor, started on steroids. He seemed like he was bouncing back. He was sitting up in bed, playing, acting himself. Our good friends live in Durham, so they had Addie. So I'd left the hospital, and, I just had a baby. So I was going there to get some sleep. Wes was staying at the hospital, and then it was quick. He was like, you've got to get back here. Things aren't good. So, yeah. But, it's...
That's March 31st.
Yeah, March 31st is when he passed away.
Wow.
It's... You go back and you have days where you're like, how did we do this? Like, how did we get through this? And I guess because we had each other. Like, seriously, honestly, I think because we are very strong people and we, I think our outlook on life, like we always look for the good in someone. We are always telling our kids, just be kind, be kind. And I don't know if that's
because of how he was.
I think because of Luke, we are the way we are, 100%.
When Luke passed, did they attribute it to like specifically the heart? Like what was it? I'm just curious.
It was rejection. So when a kid has a transplant of anything or adult, they told us in the hospital we were tracing one disease, which was cardiac issues, for another disease. And so, for us, anytime Luke had a fever, anytime Luke had a rash, we had to go to the hospital because it may be rejection. And so he never had rejection until he did.
Until he did.
And until he did. So, yeah.
And how old was he?
He was 6. He had just turned 6 in December.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm just, Lyndsi, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. You have Drew, who's a toddler.
He's 5.
5.
Mm-hmm.
Addie, who
2
was
weeks.
2 weeks old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now a bereaved son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you function?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if that first year you just go through motions and you're just kind of... I had no choice. I had 2 other children. Like, I had to do it. Yeah, I really... I don't know. Like, I do, honestly, like I said, I go back sometimes and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I lost a child, had just had a child, and then I had another child. Like, wow. I did it. I said, we did it.
Wesley, how did you cope in that first year especially?
I think both of us probably poured ourselves into each other and then poured ourselves into Drew and Addie because we didn't want them to feel our sadness and feel neglected. And so I mean, I think that's how we did it.
Yep.
And I think both of us, we wanted Luke to be remembered for everything that he did during those 6 years of life, and not for the sadness and not for the sickness. I mean, I have it on my emails. My favorite quote I used when I spoke at his celebration of life is Dr. Seuss said, "Don't cry because it happened. Don't cry because it's over. Cry because it happened. Smile because it happened." Yeah, look, I'm butchering it. But I mean, I think that's how we coped. We tried to focus on the positives, the joy that he brought us, and and you can every day. Like there was days that I remember just laying in bed crying at night, trying to make sure she didn't hear me or Drew didn't hear me. Yeah. And you just try to, when you wake up and you pop your eyes open, you try to make it a positive day. You try to make a positive impact on Drew, on Lynn's, on Addie, on our family, on our community. And I think, the strength that Luke gave us. I mean, you never saw him not be positive in his demeanor. Like he couldn't say, "Hey, Dad, I'm feeling great." Like he couldn't communicate, but you could always see that smile and that happiness and him running up to you.
What were the things that were the most meaningful to you all, especially in that first year from a community perspective, that helped you keep going?
Well, they formed it was called Team Luke, and they did t-shirts. This was our first t-shirts and bracelets. And then I guess it's been 10 years now. We, after living in Boston, we realized kids who have had transplant or can't be exposed to germs, they needed something more. So we actually formed a foundation called Hearts and Hope. So we actually help families that were just like us. We provide the meal, provide, whatever's needed, medical or not medical. If you're going through a situation that is involving you being in the hospital, your child having surgery, we want to help. We have a town home in Durham where families stay for free. They're receiving care at Duke or UNC. And then we're actually getting ready to close on one in Charlotte, 0.8 miles from Levine. So we're super, super excited about that. But back to your question, because I probably didn't even answer your question.
I can, for me, because I spoke about this before, one of the elementary schools had a Hearts and Hope fundraiser. And this girl, the teacher brought me the funds for it. But one of the things was separated. It was a Ziploc bag full of pennies and nickels and dimes. You remember this? And a little girl come to her teacher and said, "This is everything I have. Please give it to Hearts and Hope." And I mean, she was like a second or third grader. And for me, that's exemplifying what our community does. We're not, we don't make $1 million a year. All of it's my dad, my mom, Lyndsi's sister, my sisters, people in the community that I grew up with. One of them's my ex-coach, who's a superintendent of schools. It's all volunteers. And so for that, this exemplifies what our community, they were willing to give up just about anything to make sure Luke had what he needed and to support us. And so that's my favorite, exemplifying a community. This little girl was willing to give up her Ziploc bag of change to Hearts and Hope. And that's, for me, that's the perfect example.
I love it. It's what you're saying. The way I hear it is, what's meaningful to the families is when you do what you're capable of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that can be different for everybody.
That can be a card. It can be
a prayer.
Call, a text, and say, "Hey, are you okay?"
It can be anything.
Yeah.
And again, personally, I'm so passionate about this because I find that sometimes in difficult moments, especially child loss, people are so afraid of doing and saying the wrong thing that they don't do anything. And they say, "I just didn't know, and I was scared."
Right.
And I think, Wesley, that story that you share, it's you're painting such a perfect picture for me. It's imagine being a little kid, and you're emptying out your piggy bank saying, that's whatever that means to you in the context of your relationship, that's enough. And people remember that. I'm sure you remember, whether you remember them, intimately, if they're a close friend, you still remember the people that just did something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful. Lyndsi, I want to give you another opportunity here before we wrap up to share more about the foundation and the organization, where people can find out more information.
So we are, it's called Hearts and Hope Foundation. We are based in Catawba and Lincoln counties, but we serve families all over. Honestly, our name's it's gotten out there, which is pretty awesome to see. So yeah, families are in the hospital. We tend to do care packages for them. I like to always say we may be little, but we're big in heart, which is really true because we are a little local nonprofit who gets to know the families we help. We follow their journey. We share their stories. We, go see them when they are in the hospital. We deliver their package. We follow up after they leave the hospital. We check in. We invite them back to events that we have. So it's personal. It's on so many levels. And, I think it's part of healing for me as well, because it's like, I get to give back and share my journey and, hear thank you. Like, thank you for sharing that with me. And, that's enough at the end of the day, to be honest. Someone thanking me or seeing a smile on, a face as I leave the room. I always like to use the Robin Roberts quote that she says, "Make your mess your message." That's kind of my go-to and kind of how I live right now. But we're on Facebook, Instagram.
Hearts and Hope.
Yeah, Hearts and Hope Foundation.
And Lyndsi, again, I would imagine that part of what's cathartic for you is you get to say Luke's name. You get to keep him alive in the way that he exuded that joy for you. You now get to give that little bit of relief and joy to other people, which I would imagine is also just extremely cathartic.
Yes, very much.
Because even though it's been 10 years, you still get to talk about your son, and you get to still kind of fulfill a legacy on his behalf in a way. Is that a fair representation?
Oh, yeah, 100%. We had another little girl, Livy, who was born in March. All our children are born in March, except for Luke. He's December. And then Luke passed away in March. So it's March Madness in our house. We still fill out the bracket for basketball, but also we're, the emotions are very high that month.
Gosh. Be careful in July for any couples out there.
But, Addie and Livy, they didn't know Luke, but they know Luke because we speak his name every day. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing I want to call out for our listeners. You have 3 children living Earthside.
Yes.
How old are your kids now?
15, 10, and 6.
Yeah. And I just highlight that because I think there's been so many moments throughout this conversation where you all, big and small, have exuded the importance of still living in the moment that you have. And I think it's so wonderful that you found a way to build a family with the grief, with the sadness, and not made that really the sadness is not the centerpiece of your life.
I'll often get asked, well, especially families that I meet now, Luke was my first. Luke was, born with this congenital heart defect. And they're like, but you had more kids. I said, I did. And they were like, were you scared? No, not at all. Didn't even hesitate. And that goes, to the other question. If you're in public and, they see my 3 kids and someone's like, how many kids do you have? Well, depends on the day. It depends on if Livy speaks up and is like, Mom, Luke, remember, he's in heaven. So that's for a whole nother podcast if you want to, talk about that one. But it's usually I handle it way better than the other person does. And I'm just like, it's okay,
Yeah, people don't mean to. They don't know. They don't.
No, they don't.
Sometimes it's a natural question. How many children do you have? But, and I love that you don't take offense to it because it doesn't come from a place of any being malicious.
But the reactions on the other end, though, sometimes I'm just like, it's okay,
We end up consoling Neil.
Yes, every time.
But you know what? I think moments like that every once in a while for people are really healthy.
It is.
Yeah. Every once in a while, it's good to have that shock, that disbelief, that pit in the stomach. It's a wonderful reminder of people that you never know what people have gone through.
Right.
You never know what people are carrying. It's impossible to judge people based off of what you see on Facebook or what you see running around Target or on the baseball fields, because there's always layers upon layers in every family.
Yep.
And so as much as I cringe hearing that, I do think that a little more of that is actually helpful for people, because it just gets back to what we can all have, what we all share, which is that we're all flawed. We all have traumas, some bigger, some smaller. And if you press forward and you stay positive, you can still lead the life that you always dreamt of. And I know this, you never envisioned it to go like this, but look at these blessings around you. I mean, how wonderful is it?
Yeah. Exactly. I know. I remember after Luke had just passed, I was at the mall sitting there holding Addie and just looking around and, just thinking like, I wonder what their story is, or what's that person's story? Or what if, an older lady comes up to me and says, "Oh, how cute your baby." Yeah, but my son just died. Like, you don't know. Like,
You don't know.
and we are so quick to judge or just to assume and just, again, be kind.
Be kind. And it's why I think the role that you're playing at Levine's now as a patient navigator is so perfectly suited for your experience, by the way, your education and your experience.
Right.
And the families at Levine are so blessed to have you as a resource, because from what I know, moms trust moms, parents trust other parents. That's who you're really turning to when decisions need to be made and you're not really sure how to proceed, and you both exude such light. I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity this evening. And Lyndsi, I want to say something. You were the first person that asked. I've done almost 100 episodes. You're the first person to ask, "Can I bring my husband?" And I love that. I love that because I also think that it's very emblematic of your approach of bringing people into the story, not being afraid to lean on other people, not being afraid to say that I need help, that I need emotional support. And your 3 kiddos are super, super lucky to have you as parents. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes.